Hello, my name is James Patton, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use layer masks to create our invisible man drinking his glass of wine here. So we'll use these different images and use masks to selectively mask or reveal different parts of them to come up with our finished result. So I have my images open in Photoshop here. Let's go to my man here first. Let's just dock my layers panel over here because we'll be using it quite a lot. And the first thing we need to do is to make a selection of our fellow. So we can do that using the quick selection tool over here in the tools panel. Let's just paint over certain areas to very quickly select them like this. So you can see the tool does a good job of snapping onto these edge areas. And once we have a good selection of the hat and the suit, we can go to Refine Edge just to tidy it up a little bit. You can flick through the different modes in Refine Edge by hitting F. And I think on the white background works quite well. And then we can use these sliders to get a smoother selection. So let's bring radius up to about 2. And we'll bring smoothness up to 2 as well. And also maybe bring contrast up to about 5 just to give us a nice hard edge. Let's choose output 2, new layer with layer mask. And then let's hit OK. And you can see in my layers panel here, after a few seconds, a new layer will appear with our mask, and it's hidden our background layer for us quite helpfully. So if you want to view a mask, you can always just hold Alt and click on it, and this will give you a view of the actual mask rather than the image. You can hold Alt and click on it again to go back to our normal view. And you can see if I flick back onto my mask how the white area are all the parts on the image that are being revealed. The black area is all the parts that are being hidden. Any areas that are shades of grey in between will be partially hidden or revealed. Let's hold Alt and click off back onto the main image again. Now we want to move our suit and hat into our background image. Let's grab the move tool. Let's make sure we have auto select and show transform controls checked up in the options there. Then let's click on our suit here and drag. We want to drag him up to our main image. So if we drag along to the end here, let's see, I think our image is along this end. Here we go, our masks BG JPEG, and then down into the image and release the mouse button. This will drop our suit and hat onto our background like this. Next, let's go to my shirt here, and I'm going to just use the lasso tool over here in the tools panel to draw a very loose selection around this area of the shirt. Then let's grab the move tool again, just click and drag that selection to my main image, then drop in. Then we can position it using the move tool still over the suit here. Let's just zoom in slightly with Command or Control and plus, hold space to move around. We can lower the opacity of our shirt layer on top there just to position it more accurately. We can also maybe just use the transform controls here that we have to just position it where we like. Just trying to make it look like we have a back to the shirt here. So I think something like that will look good. Let's hit enter to apply that. Now this time I'm going to first of all drag the opacity slider back up to 100, then hold Alt and click on the add layer mask icon. And if you watch the layers panel, you'll see that we have a full layer mask applied. So that's hiding everything on my shirt layer. Let's just go ahead before we get any further and rename these layers. So we call this shirt back, and let's call this suit hat. Let's just minimize that layers panel a little bit. Now let's click on my layer mask thumbnail here in the layers panel, and you'll see once you click on it, it's highlighted by a black area around the edge. This means that we're working on the layer mask rather than the image. If we were working on the image and I began painting, I'd be painting over the pixels on my image, but as I click on my layer mask thumbnail, I'm now working on the thumbnail, so I can paint onto that mask. Then let's grab the brush tool. Let's choose white as our foreground color, as white will reveal parts of the layer. We'll use a soft edged circular brush. Let's just zoom in a little bit closer, and then let's paint over this area to reveal the back of that shirt, just like this. You can be a bit more precise about this than I am. just giving the impression that there's a back to this shirt that we couldn't see in the original image, obviously because of the guy wearing it. Let's hit X to flip to black, and this will allow us to paint with black to hide parts of our shirt layer. So I can quickly whiz around these edges to hide those areas where I've gone over into the background. I'm thinking that's working pretty good. And I'm going to use a similar method to add a rim to the bottom of the hat. So let's go ahead and grab the lasso tool. Again, just drawing a loose selection around this area here that we want to use. And then let's grab the move tool again. Click and drag up to our tab there, then down into our main image. Let's just zoom out a little bit with the Command or Control and minus. Let's just move this rim over here and then use our transform controls to rotate and position it like that. And then let's just lower the brightness of the layer slightly by pressing Command or Control and M to bring up our curves. I'm just going to drag down on the curve just so that the blacks match the black of the hat underneath. Let's hit OK to apply that, and again let's hold Alt and click on the Add Layer Mask icon to give us a full layer mask that will again hide everything on that hat layer. Let's just call the layer Hat Rim, and then again we can paint with white to reveal parts of that layer. So let's click on the layer mask thumbnail again to make sure we're working on the mask. Then with our brush tool set to white, let's begin painting over this area to reveal the rim around here. And again you can see I've gone over to the background, so let's hit X to flip to black, and then I can paint to hide that background. There we go, I think that's working. So now let's move on to the wine glass. So let's go to our masks wine JPEG, and again we need to make a selection of the wine glass and the red wine. So let's grab the magic wand tool over here in the tools panel. Let's set tolerance to about 7, make sure we have contiguous checked, and then let's click over the background. So I'm going to try and select the background, then invert the selection so we can select the glass. So I'm just clicking while holding shift, and this will allow me to add to my selected area. So you can see I can build up a selection to try and seek out that edge of the glass and the wine. Let's continue clicking while holding shift to add to that selection. And I think that's looking okay. So now I have a decent selection of the glass and the wine. I also have all these bits around the background here that have been selected accidentally. So I can grab my lasso tool, and then if I hold shift I can just quickly whiz around these areas like this just by dragging, and this will add to my selection. So I'm just adding to my selection of the background to build that selection up. Let's just go over these areas as well too. So you can see I can use a combination of different selection tools to get a clean selection like this. Now I'm happy with that, so let's invert it with Command or Control, Shift and I. Now I have the wine glass selected. Then let's just go to Refine Edge again. We'll use the settings here just to smooth out that selection. Let's bring radius up to about 2 again, and smooth to 2 as well. Let's hit OK to apply that. And you can see that's still coming up as a selection. Then we can duplicate our background layer by dragging it down to the Create New Layer icon here in the Layers panel. Now if we just click on the layer mask icon here, this will create a layer mask based on our selected area. So let's click on the Add Layer Mask icon, and you can see that gives me my layer masks from that selection. And if I hide my background layer, you can see how that's working. Now let's grab the Move tool again. With my top layer selected, I'm going to click and drag the wine glass towards my main image up to the tabs here at the top, and then down into my main image. Let's just position it, and we'll turn it off for now. Let's go ahead and click on our suit layer here at the bottom. Then let's go to Window, and let's choose Masks to bring up my Masks panel. This gives me various options to change the features of my mask, so I can reduce the density, which is quite useful for this step because we can lower the intensity of our mask, and you can see how it changes to grey in my layers panel there. Let's bring in the density down to about 50%. Then let's click on my wine glass layer at the top there, then use the move tool to position it, and I can position my new glass in the same position that my old glass was in. Let's just use the arrow keys to fine tune that position, and then let's hit enter to apply that. Now I want to change the position of my wine, and I can do this using the Puppet Warp tool. So let's go to Edit, Puppet Warp, and then let's zoom in a little bit closer. Now I can position points like this by clicking around the mesh here to add points. I'm just going to add a few points around the wine glass here to hold this piece in position. Then I can click a couple of times along my spouting wine here, and then if I click and drag this point, you can see I can move this point, and this will allow me to alter the direction of my wine. And then I can click and drag another point here to have my wine falling this way. And there we go, we can make it look like it's following the line of the throat like this. Let's click down on a point here just to make it seem as if the wine's kind of passing through the mouth first. And there we go, you can fine tune that as much as you like. Let's hit enter to apply it. And now let's just fine tune the mask. So let's click on the mask thumbnail here of our wine glass layer. Then let's grab the brush tool with black as our foreground colour. Let's zoom in a little bit, and then we can paint to hide the wine over this area like this to make it look like it's disappearing behind the shirt. And also let's just get rid of the fingers on this part here. Now I just need to fine tune the position of my wine glass. Let's grab the move tool again, then use the arrow keys, because I need it in exactly the same position as my original glass. Then I can use my suit layer here to add in this bit of glass. So let's click on my layer mask thumbnail here of my suit layer, then bring the density back up to 100%. Then I can grab the brush tool with white as my foreground colour and paint with white to reveal parts of that suit layer where we have the intact piece of glass there. Let's hit X to flip back to black and hide that background. And there we go. And I think if we click back on our wine glass layer mask here, let's grab the brush tool and use black just to fine tune that mask a little bit to make it look more realistic like this, just by shaving off a little bit there. Now the shape of the mask looks okay, but the colour is a little bit off, so let's go ahead and click on the add adjustment layer icon here at the bottom of the layers panel. We'll choose hue saturation to add a hue saturation adjustment layer. Let's just drag it off to the side over here. And our glasses are looking a little bit red and a little bit yellow, so we can use the settings here to target those colours. Let's target the yellows first and drag the saturation slider down to, maybe all the way down to -100, just to get rid of that yellow tint to the glass. Then let's go to reds, and we can drag that saturation slider down so that our glass more closely resembles the background in colour, so it seems like the background showing through. Now obviously that's reducing all the colours in the rest of our image, so we need to add a mask to our adjustment layer this time. And as adjustment layers come with a mask built in, we can simply hit Command or Control and I to invert it, so it gives us a full mask filled with black. Then we can grab the brush tool, this time with white as our foreground colour, and paint over this area just like this to reveal that hue saturation adjustment over the glass and make it look like it fits in more accurately to the rest of the scene. Just whizzing over it here, there we go. Just zoom out a little bit and see how we're looking. I've just hidden my panels there to give us an idea of what's going on. Now let's zoom in a little bit closer to the hand here. I can see the sleeve could do a little bit of work. Let's just grab the lasso tool again. I'm just going to draw a very rough selection like this around this part of the shirt. Let's click on our suit image here on the image thumbnail. Then let's press Command or Control or J to duplicate that selection, then we can grab the move tool. I'm just going to move it up over this part here and use the transform controls just to position it so it's kind of coming around the back of the shirt there. Let's hit enter to apply that, and again hold Alt and click the add layer mask thumbnail to give us a full layer. And once again we can paint with white to reveal that little selected area there. So let's just paint with white around here, and this will help us to just build the rest of that suit in around the back of the shirt here. There we go, just to give it a little bit more realism. Let's zoom out slightly. I think we have nearly there. I think maybe the last thing we need to do is to add some texture just to bring all of the elements together. So let's go to our texture image here. Let's grab the move tool and again click and drag to our main image, then down into the image. And we want our texture to sit at the top of the layers stack. And there's a very useful shortcut we can use to do that, which is to hold Command or Control and use the bracket keys, and this will shift our layer up or down our layer stack. If we add Shift into the shortcut, then we can use the bracket keys to position that layer right at the top or the bottom. So we want it sitting right at the top there. Let's just zoom out slightly. And we also want it sitting over the whole image, so let's just move it around with the move tool just so it's sitting there. And then let's change the blend mode of our texture layer to soft light, and you can see this gives us a nice textured finish that just helps to bring all of the elements together. We can maybe lower the opacity slightly to about 80%. And there we go, that's our finished wine guzzling invisible man. Let's just whiz back through the layers that we've used, and you can see I've named them all appropriately. If I hold Alt, I can click on a layer mask and this will give us a view of the mask, so we can just quickly see which parts of a mask we've used on which layer. So you can see we have the collar there, the hat rim, the wine glass, and then the colour change in the wine, all working together to give us this finish. That's it, thanks very much for watching.